those of you who are guests, you'll be introduced when we get to your point on the agenda. So Lori will introduce you and you can introduce the rest of the team. And I assume Tilly Randy is here so that he can introduce the folks with the concept paper. But we are streaming live on YouTube. I want to thank everyone for coming to our College Council meeting. College Council is the highest level of governance at San Diego City College, where we have presentations to members of the participatory governance groups on campus, and any member of the campus can present an agenda item. You can do so one or two ways, either by emailing the president's office, Aaron Flanagan, and myself, and we would be happy to add an item to the agenda, or working with your reps from your constituency groups, who I will introduce momentarily. We have a fairly active agenda, and I would remind folks who are presenting, please adhere to the timetable, as we have a fairly aggressive agenda. But we are so happy to have two presentations today from amazing faculty here at City College who are working on a concept and a program that we're very, very proud of. And so if I could begin with bringing up the agenda. And again, this meeting is being recorded, it's being broadcast live on YouTube. So welcome everyone who's watching via YouTube. I want to thank everyone for allowing us to come into your homes. And I'm super excited about today because toward the end of the agenda, we have what I believe are some very positive news that I'm going to report on. But let's begin. I think we're going to table the approval of the meeting notes from April 13th. So we'll approve those notes in the next meeting. But I will begin with a roll call to see who is here. You can unmute yourself when I say your name. Of course, to our guests, I won't be introducing you until your point in the agenda. But again, my name is Ricky Shabazz. I have the honor and privilege of being the president of our wonderful college, San Diego City College. Paul Alexander, past president.
Here.
Tilly, vice president of instruction.
Present.
Aaron, administrative representative.
Present.
Robbie, chair of information, Institutional Technology Council.
Present.
Caesar, public information officer.
I'm here.
Jocelyn, supervisory representative.
Present.
Nadia, president, chairs cabinet.
Present.
Destiny, president, associated students. Susan, dean of institutional effectiveness.
Present.
Masa, president, academic senate.
Present.
John, vice president, administrative services.
Present.
Alana, president, classified senate.
Here.
Denise, vice president of students.
Present.
And I'm not sure if Josh is here, who normally represents our student government, but if he's not, I'm sure he'll show at some point. Josh has attended, been very happy with his attendance. I think Josh has probably attended more meetings than any other student government. So thank you, Josh, and everyone who sees to it that he is here. These are your members of College Council and leaders of our constituency groups on campus. So should you have any questions or desire to place something on the agenda, these would be the individuals that you can reach out to. Certainly, you can always reach out to the president's office. We would be glad to have you present something, an agenda item to College Council. And speaking of presenting something, I am going to turn it over to our Vice President of Instruction to present a concept paper and presentation that I am very excited about. In fact, there's a grant that we have an opportunity for the National Science Foundation. So I'll turn it over to Tim.
Thank you, Ricky. I am so excited and pleased to be here today with several people. I have Justin Akers, we have Beto Vasquez. Wait, he's here somewhere. So there he is, Vasquez. Oh, that's right. Bernie's with him in the background. And then I am also really pleased and honored to bring along Dean Barnes and Dean Eureka here, both of them with me. I just want to do a quick second because the time is theirs, not mine. We had been talking about this, kicking this can around, as Ricky would call it, for a little bit of time with Lori and Randy, and just coming up with different ideas and some information. And then the two deans looked at me and said, we need faculty in here and let's let them have the conversations. So I'm going to turn this over to all of you. Lori and Randy, you and Justin and Beto have this already configured, what you're going to do. So I'm just going to pass it over to you all. And I think you can share screen as well. I think maybe Justin had wanted to share.
Yes, so we'll let it. And here. So is that visible, everyone?
Got it.
Okay. Well, thank you, President Shabazz, Vice President Chavez, and everyone else, colleagues, for allowing us to come into this space and present on this important subject. And I want to thank President Shabazz for supporting, this project that we're about to present. But I'd like to share with you first a kind of overview of what we've been working on, which, we're focusing the title here, Chicanx Latinx Student Success in STEM at San Diego College. So I'm going to go through these slides and highlight some of the research data points we've compiled in a white paper that we've written over the last few months. Myself, Vasquez, others who have contributed to this. And we want to just start by saying that, we see the potential possibility to make a substantive transformation in terms of student success, actually, focusing on the needs of Chicano, Chicana, Chicanx, Latinx students. And to start, I want to point to enrollments, specifically of the Chicano Latino students in STEM courses. And so looking at data that was compiled from the San Diego Community College District, this is fall 2019, we see that Chicanx, Latinx students made up about half, about 50% of the students that were enrolled in STEM-related courses that semester, about 1,447 out of 14,000. So we know that there's interest. We know that our Chicanx, Latinx students are enrolled in these courses. But what we end up seeing in the data is there's something going on. It's not a bit of a challenge, crisis, a bit of a process that's not facilitating the kind of success that we see across the board. So if we look on the left side here, we see that Chicano Latino students have generally a lower grade point average in terms of their enrollments in STEM courses, about 0.20%, 0.2 lower in the GPA. On the right-hand side, we also see discrepancies in the success rate. So overall, students have had about a 57% success rate that semester, but Chicanx Latinx students had about a 51% success rate. As far as completion, we see a slight discrepancy there as well, with our students, Chicano Latinx students, about a 1.5 point lower in terms of completion. And it's worth reiterating that this is half of our student population enrolled in these courses. So this is a very significant percentage of our students. Now, in terms of research, a growing body of evidence shows that looking at a larger picture, Black and Latinx college students have a higher general rate of exit from STEM courses, and this, according to the research and lived experiences, is due to embedded racial inequalities. Even though these college students declare STEM majors at the same rate as their white peers. So there's the intent, there's the interest, there's the desire, but something's going on through the process, through the pipeline. Another quote from the research: lower success and completion rates translate into fewer students entering into the STEM fields, fewer students completing degrees and entering the ranks of scientists, mathematics, teachers, engineers, and all other aligned practitioners. And if we look at this data graph from, was published in 2017 from a study done in 2015, the National Science Foundation, it basically illustrates what is happening at the end of this pipeline, where the overwhelming majority of jobs in these fields are going disproportionately to white men, but also disproportionately to other groups. When we get to Chicano, Latino men, it's about 4%, and women about 2%. So there's, again, a very significant discrepancy. Now, there's another thing that we are looking at here in terms of understanding how we can address these issues. What can we do to improve these, the GP, the success, the completion, and the continuation through the pipeline into the STEM-related fields. And a growing body of research is focusing on the way in which students experience the STEM-related classes and whether or not those classes validate their cultural identity, whether or not they reinforce their sense of belonging. There's a variety of factors that contribute to how students see themselves in relationship to the STEM-related courses that they're in. And one study from San Diego City College data backs this up, which points out that for Chicano, Chicanx, Latinx students, there's a significant increase in their success, retention, and GPA rate if they take ethnic studies courses as part of their coursework. And so if you look on the top left here, retention rates go between 5 and 8% for Chicano, Latinx students if they take 2 or more studies classes as part of their coursework. And there's no ethnic studies classes, of course, we don't see that. We don't see that rise. Sorry. Looking at success rates, we see up to a 12% increase in success rates if these students take 2 or more ethnic studies classes. And in GPA, we see a 0.24% increase in GPA if they take 2 or more ethnic studies classes. So the one result is to understand when students have a better understanding of themselves, when they feel validated, when they feel connected, when they feel present, when they have a sense of belonging, and when the content is presented in a way that connects to them, their identity, their culture, their existing knowledges, their history, etc., then we see that increases their success of students across the board. So we're looking at emerging trends, and there are more grants that are being focused on funding student success for what are now being referred to as peer populations or persons excluded because of their ethnicity or race. This is an academic concept that's being developed to explain how people who are excluded or don't experience the things that I've previously mentioned tends to negatively impact their career through college. So there's more grant money being allocated focused on serving the specific needs of students, such as developing and using culturally relevant and culturally affirming curriculum inside STEM courses, cultivating a diverse pool of instructors that reflect the culture, the identity, and the lived experiences of the student, linked ethnic studies and STEM courses using different models, cohort model, learning communities, etc. And there's a number of other projects that can be funded or that are trending towards getting funded in terms of increasing success rates of these students. So what is needed, and I'll conclude here, and we can answer any questions. We already have this. We're already starting with this, the leadership on the campus, the administration, a shared collective vision and sense of urgency, to improve the success of our students in line with our mission, our priorities, and through a social justice framework. We need institutional support for planning and resources to source funding and to develop proposals that can be used to win grants to fund projects in this direction. We need departmental and student support. Departmental and student and support for students and faculty participation. And ultimately, what we're striving for is nothing less than a cultural shift and a transformation where we can begin to plan for an increase in student success and change this crisis from away from what's been heading towards one where we can see growth, success, and our students thriving, through the college experience and entering into these fields as professionals. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you. And if there's any questions, myself, others, we'll be happy to entertain them.
Very, very well done, Justin. And you hit on some very important points. Would you mind unsharing that way we could see one another? Are there any questions from members of College Council?
So if it's okay, Ricky, I would just want to extend that with the work of Justin and Beto, and there's been a team of people that have been meeting all along. As a matter of fact, Ricky came and met with them as well, and will continue to move forward with that. They have some wonderful ideas. We were all challenged to see if there could be a beginning start of a concept paper, right? And that's what Justin and Beto have done. And thank you for that. And now we're starting to see opportunities come forward. As Ricky mentioned, there's an NSF grant that this was really, sorry, I don't mean to steal your thunder, Ricky, if I am, but this is that, I know I am. This is that part that really does fill right in, it fits right into a space. And perfect timing, right, for this to move forward. So I will hand it over to you, Ricky, at the baton now for you to continue and finish up on that one.
Yeah, so as Justin has pointed out, there are intentional efforts to increase success of various underrepresented groups in STEM. And as we were working on this, we knew that an HSI or an NSF grant would come out. And sure enough, it was released about 2 weeks ago. And so I'm sharing that grant because there may be some people who don't understand why we're doing this, or who may want to understand better why we're doing this. And this speaks to everything that Justin's already presented, that the federal government is taking intentional steps to ensure that there is greater representation of our Latinx, Chicanx community and other disproportionately impacted groups in STEM. And so this is a perfect example of a grant that I am fairly confident, given our college's focus, that we should be competitive in competing for. And so it's a racial equity in STEM education. And you could read, but I want to go here because, very often, sometimes those of us that are carrying the baton are looked at as only advocating for certain groups. And I want everyone to see that persistent racial injustices and inequalities in the United States have led to renewed concern in the interest of addressing racism. Right, so this speaks right to what Justin provided, a high-level overview. And we as a college have an opportunity to dismantle some of these things that prevent the success of our Latinx community from succeeding. And I also want to just acknowledge Beto, because he is a success story in so many different ways, a product of City College, someone who has a master's degree in science and working on a doctorate degree. And who better to team up on this project with the great leadership of Justin and others in our ethnic studies departments to launch something that I believe strongly can be a model for other colleges across the country. And so thank you, Dean Etika and Dean Barnes for their leadership, and both departments coming together to have very intentional conversations about what this looks like. Any questions from the members of College Council? Because I'd like to bring this to a formal vote. I believe Tilly sent the concept paper to you all. I believe it's been presented across the campus, and would like to bring this to a vote if someone would
Vicky,
make a motion.
I don't
Yes.
know that I have shared that concept paper yet with this group.
Oh, that wasn't one of the
Handouts?
yes.
No, I did not. I apologize. I did not send that one.
Okay. Then in that case, what I would ask Tilly is if you would share that, and then we could bring this back for a formal vote next week. In the meantime, we can open it up to questions for the members of College Council. Did anyone have questions for the team working on this? And I want to be clear that this would result in sections being set aside and support services be set aside for this effort to launch a potential cohort as a pilot. And sometimes you believe something will work, but we would want to be able to compare the pilot group to the general population to see if this is the route that could be an intervention to help address many of the data points that Justin pointed out. Paul.
Yeah, no, it's not a question. It's just praise. I just wanted to say kind of how excited I am to see this program at City College. And I think that knowing the people who are being involved, and of course, it's always good to see Beto back on campus. Well, virtually back on campus, but it feels like this is the type of thing that colleges across the U.S. are going to really look at to replicate, and so the forethought and the kind of energy that was put into it is really appreciated. So thank you all for doing this.
Any other comments or questions? And we see Juana and others in the chat, but any other questions?
I'd like to just add, Ricky, thank you for sort of encouraging everyone to look into this. Tilly has been working with us for many months. Justin and Beto and the rest of the faculty that have contributed have put in a lot of time. And I really want to thank them, and also for your leadership and for yours, Tilly, because this was a lot of work to bring forward this evidence and information and data, which I think is excellent. Thanks, Beto and Justin.
Agreed, and thank you, Lori. Any other comments? And so, I apologize. In the terms of next steps, I'll ask Tilly to send the concept paper ahead of our meeting for next time and place this back on the agenda for a formal vote. But that'll give folks an opportunity. And Justin, if you could share your PowerPoint with Tilly as well, we can send over both documents. That way, when we come to the next meeting, we can make a formal vote because we would want this to be backed by the entire college if we are going to move in this direction, which it sounds like folks are in favor of. So thank you, Justin and Beto and Lori and Randy and everyone involved in this effort. We'll bring it to a formal vote in the next College Council meeting once folks have had a chance to review the concept paper.
Thank you.
It's moments like this that remind me why I so much wanted to be here at City College, and so grateful I am. So thank you all for being here.
Yeah. And also in terms of next steps, Beto, were you going to chime in?
Yeah. If I could, just real quick, I just I'm really appreciative to be a part of this. I think the times that we're in right now really require for us to be innovative and very strategic about the moves that we do to provide opportunities for our students and also for the faculty and the staff that are involved. And so, in moving forward with applying for, NSF funds, which can be fairly new for community colleges, right? I just, I wanna reinforce the need that there's going to be for us to collaborate, wholeheartedly, right? And I think that sometimes can be, could cause a little uneasiness, but I think it's, as Justin pointed out, it's well worth it. Very important, what the work that we're doing. These funds are a little bit different, and so sometimes, we'll have to lean into collaborating with other institutions. And so I just want to reinforce that we are ready to do that. It's great making those connections to the community, trying to redefine what success is going to look like for our students, because for some it could just be, hey, I just want to get a job in a STEM related field right away, right? And so I want to encourage us to kind of think along those lines and be creative in that sense, because that's really what our students are going to need, as they continue to move forward through their trajectories. But very honored to be here with you all and looking forward to serving on this.
Yeah, Beto, spot on in the development of partnerships so that there can be collaboration, including Mesa, who has a bachelor's degree in a science-related field, where folks are entering into careers and above livable wage opportunities. And so this is a perfect timing. And this notion of being uncomfortable, folks, we're in a pandemic. Every one of us is uncomfortable right now. And so sometimes we just got to embrace the fact of being uncomfortable so that we can get comfortable. None of us should be comfortable with the data that Justin just presented. And so we can't sit back and just watch this data continue without having some form of an intervention that we at least pilot to see if what we believe to be the case is in fact the case. So thank you, everyone. We'll bring this to a formal vote, and Tilly will work with Justin to get the PowerPoint and get the concept paper out. Thank you all again. Moving right along, I'll turn it back over to Tilly to introduce our next presenter, something that we're equally excited about, including since we're broadcasting live, I want to just formally congratulate Corinne for her appointment to the Southwestern Board of Trustees.
Well, thank you, Ricky. So next up on our agenda is we want to present on the peer program, and to just kind of kick it off and introduce it. I mean, I'm so fortunate to be instruction because they do so much wonderful things. And I just have to say, I don't know if any of you had the opportunity to listen in on the last Board of Trustees meeting last week, and Trustee Craig Milgram had taken a moment during his time to give his updates. And he was at a Back to Work San Diego Advisory Committee when our Mayor Todd Gloria called attention to City College's homeless program and engaged education, our peer program, basically, resources program. And it was launched by our program with Corinne and Lori. So I just wanted to kind of give that like at the beginning pieces. I think we've been now working on this one. Remind me, Lori, I think it's been 2 years, right?
It has, since spring 19, you're correct.
About this time of year now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn it over to you and Corinne. So go ahead and I just give us an update.
Thank you, Tilly. Yeah, it is a really exciting, innovative program, and it really is the first in the nation. And I think that we're going to be getting more attention based on what we're doing here. It is very innovative. Began with someone in the community coming to us. It was Lisa Jones. She's the Executive Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at the San Diego Housing Commission. Came to Tilly and shared with her that there was a need in the community and wanted to know if City College could do anything about it. So when Tilly heard what Lisa had to say, she brought it to me and my school, which I'm really pleased. Lisa came with 2 issues that she was projecting would be a challenge here in San Diego. She was sharing that there was a lot of funding coming down to help homeless populations, and that LA had had millions of dollars that they were able to create jobs with, and not enough people to fill the jobs. And she was anticipating that that would happen in San Diego. So when she came to us, the thought was, you have programs here. Tell me about your programs. Do you have students that might be interested in these jobs? And of course we do, especially in behavioral sciences in the building behind me. We have human services, which is like social work. We have psychology, alcohol and other drug studies, gerontology. There's a lot of older people who are homeless. Mental health work, and if I didn't mention it already, psychology. And we said, yes, this is what our students train for. We prepare them. And we would be happy to recruit folks from our classes to advertise the fact that there's going to be job openings. Well, that was a part of what she needed. But the second thing she shared was, not only do we need people to fill these jobs, they may be filled, but what happens on the jobs is that the stress is so great that the retention is not good. And the average stay on a job at that time was about 3 months. So what can City College do to help with that issue? So we talked about it, Tilly and I, and came up with the fact that we can offer specialized classes. We were able to come up with the concept of having a class that would specifically train folks to develop those skills that they would need when they work in these types of jobs. And frankly, if you're prepared and know what to expect, you're going to be you'll have a lot more job satisfaction. So the class that we worked with Corinne on, and I'll be bringing Corinne in here in just a second, we call it Human Services 75. There was a lot of conversation among the faculty. What would we include in this? We started with a 1-unit class, which is 16 hours, and we realized the content had to be a lot more than just 16 hours. But we didn't want it to be too long that it would dissuade folks from coming in and taking a 3-unit class. So we talked about the topics we needed to have included. What are the factors that lead to homelessness? Who are the homeless folks? What are the community resources? How do you become eligible for food or housing? What kind of housing is available? What is it like to be a frontline worker? What is that like to work with someone who may have mental or substance abuse issues? How do you engage with someone like that? What might be first aid you think about that if something happens while you're working with someone? What might be career opportunities? And of course, how do you address the stress and burnout of the workers? So these are the topics that we were able to include in this course, Human Services 75, which is open to anyone. The good news is that we were able to show Lisa and the Housing Commission how we could create a course. And she then was able to come up with funding for us to have wraparound services for any students, such as career counseling, academic advising, and then the creation of this course. And Corinne is our faculty member who teaches this. We have a team now who offer these wraparound services. We have Jose Enriquez. We stole him from counseling. He's fantastic. He does the career academic counseling. And we have someone by the name of Jennifer Cosio from San Diego State who does peer counseling job preparation. Our original grant was $187,000. It's a 3-year grant. But this fantastic thing happened to us last week, didn't it, Tilly, when we were speaking with Lisa. And she was so pleased to announce that the mayor had acknowledged what we were doing. We had already done a presentation to the League of Innovation, a half-an-hour video that we have, and they awarded additional funds. So the funding that we're going to the board with this June will be $437,000. So a lot of work to be done. That's going to be expanded services, placement. We may be doing some hiring, but I will be retiring. I will be moving on, and I am so happy that Corinne is a wonderful, active, fantastic faculty member who has increased our human services program greatly. And I'm going to ask you, Corinne, to talk a little bit more about what we're doing and the linkage the partnership that we're creating on campus.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lori, and thanks to everyone as well for having us. I'm going to share screen real quick just so that you have an idea of who our team is. I'll just leave this up for a bit. So like Lori had explained, I'm the coordinator for the program. I will be taking lead on more of the administrative role since she will be retiring, which she has definitely earned, even though we're very, very sad to see her go. And I also teach the Human Services 75 class. So a note with that class. When we first created the class, we were hoping and praying we would get maybe at least 15 to 20 students to enroll. We offered it for the first time last semester. Big kudos to Jennifer and Elizabeth for really pushing this through curriculum to get it approved within a year. And we had 43 students enroll. Same number this semester again, 43 students. So now we're looking to offer twice in fall because the demand is there, the interest is there, and we have been very appreciative. Jose in the middle is our academic counselor. His role primarily is to make sure that our students who are interested in working in this field have their education plans, make sure that they're on track with finishing the degrees or the certificates that will ready them for these positions. So he has seen, let's see, up to date, he just started in February with us, and he's seen almost 100 students already. His wait list is quite long. So students do have to wait a little bit to see him. So with the expansion of this grant, we're hoping to be able to have another academic counselor on the team. And then we have Jennifer Clisio too, who is both our assistant program coordinator. She is also our career coach. So she has met with about 90 students already, providing them with coaching on their resume building, their interviewing skills. And for many of our students, as you know, they're not fresh out of high school. Many of our students are in their second, third career journeys. So we do have people who've worked in other fields for a while, and they want to know how they can ready themselves to work in human services and work in the field with people who are addressing homelessness. So she helps prepare them for that. She also works to develop partnerships with several organizations throughout the county. And I'm very, very happy and excited to announce that we have been able to successfully have organizations hire our students. We have one who's working on mental health systems. We have another one who is working at the County of San Diego. We have about 2 or 3 actually who were hired on by Jewish Family Services to work with migrant families, primarily the girls who are being housed right now at the convention center, to make sure they're cared for. So it's just been this really wonderful response from partners out in the community. We've also been working with Sasha Knox. So she's our new bestie. She has been really, really great helping us with smaller job fairs. We have our first large one on May 13th, which should be going out soon, so that our students know if they want to work in this field, the positions are out there. Now, as we're talking about readying our students to work in this field, I want to also acknowledge the fact that we know the strength in this program lies in our students' lived experiences. We know that our students are probably the highest number of students in any of our higher ed institutions in the county who are at risk of facing homelessness or currently unsheltered. And the beauty with that is that we're actually not only working with these students to see their lived experience as assets and see this experience as ways for them to actually make a difference in their personal lives, but in the lives of others. We're also working with Marciano and Emily Saldine and the mental health team. Big kudos to the Welcome Home City folks. We have provided a cross referral system so that we are providing our students with this beautiful continuum of care. A student comes to the city, they're hungry, they want to learn, they know that higher ed is literally the only way they're going to ever come out of poverty, but they need support. We're able to give them that support. Thank goodness for our Welcome Home City team. And then they're able to actually learn how the systems we have in our city, in our state, in our nation have contributed to where they are in their lives, and teach them how to make a difference and work in this field. And so it's just been this really beautiful journey. It has been 2 years, but it feels like it's been 5 minutes. The interest we've received from the Union Tribune, from KPPS, NPR, from NBC just shows again the need for this model. And it's just been such an honor to be part of it and to have all of your support as well. I don't know if Dr. Shabazz remembers, it was actually our last day on campus when we pitched this to the Board of Trustees to approve the grant. That was the last time we were that I was together with all the faculty and staff. That was our last, who knew that was going to be our last day together, right? And so, you know, I think about that first day and I think about where we are now and where our students are, and it's just been wonderful. So thank you.
Thanks,
Well,
Corinne.
Yes, and thank you both. You know, there's a lot of discussions about partnerships and what partnerships have come to City College since I've arrived at City. And I can tell you this is one of many that we're so happy to have, because there's a future in this, as we know that both hunger and homelessness are two things that are solvable. And so our students are going to be on the front lines of being able to assist folks with transitioning back into some sense of normalcy. And so, kudos to our wonderful dean, who we congratulate as well on her pending retirement. And we have some exciting news later in the agenda that I'm sure she'll be equally happy to hear. Kudos to our wonderful professors who are on the front line of social justice. This is social justice work, folks. So thank you to everyone. Any questions from College Council or comments for our presenters today? Masa.
Just want to say thank you so much for doing this. I've seen compassion fatigue amongst social services and human services professional when I was working for a social services county agency up in Riverside, and those who are taking care of folks who may need a little support aren't taken care of, then we're not taking care of anybody at all. So thank you so much for these. And I had a question for Lori and Corinne here. Do you expect to have like a request or like contract education type of situation from the agencies and partners that you're working, where you may have to develop a course or being asked to develop? I'm just worried about, you guys are doing a wonderful job and going above and beyond that. Want to make sure that you're compensated for your time and effort, because this issue came up in a Senate meeting. So I just wanted to address that, if that happens.
That's a good question. If you don't mind, I'll answer. When we initially began, we thought that class would be paid for by the Housing Commission. We weren't sure how many people we would have in it. If it didn't have enough students, then they were going to pay the salary of but it didn't turn out that way, as Corinne said. And in the future, we're going to be offering more than one a semester, probably. But we have been contacted by quite a few people that want to duplicate what we have. Some of these are for profit. So we're going to discuss how and when we share. But we're very happy to share. But again, I think it's so unique that we kind of want to make sure we develop it fully before we are able to share everything that we do. But good question, Masa. Thank you.
And Lori, if I can add just a little bit to that, Masa, with the added funding that they're also giving, they're also asking for additional track of other options that can happen, and all the things that happen in the school, in your school, actually, there's so many opportunities to be able to grow, right? So we'll see what's coming next.
Awesome. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Masa. And I want to shout out to Lisa, President Shabazz. She is a fantastic partner, so fond of City College, and really appreciates what we do. And we've had a good time working with her, haven't we, Tilly and Corinne, and her team.
Thank you, Lori. Any other comments or questions?
I just have a comment. I just really want to say I definitely hear your passion and your heart. And so, Corinne, just really thank you. And Lori, I just really feel your heart and your passion. And so thank you for the work that you do. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Great. And there are two of many partnerships that have been developed, at least in the last 4 years, that really speak to social justice and diversifying the workforce. This is one of them. The other, and I'll just go on record right now, request that we bring in Dr. Bull and Raphael to speak on the NAVWAR partnership that placed a number of our students into above livable wage careers. And as Beto really pointed out earlier, while we're working to provide a world-class education, many of our students do come to us hoping that there is some satisfying career at the end of the rainbow. And the presentation today leads to that, and the NAVWAR partnership leads to that as well, as folks have come questioning what kind of partnerships have we developed. So I'd love to have a presentation in the next College Council about the NAVWAR partnership for those who may not be aware of it. Any other comments for the good of the order?
I can't help but chime in too, because this is such an amazing career pathway. And so you guys are killing it. Thank you so much, Corinne. You're outstanding. And the whole team, the synergy, Dina, Rika, I mean, it's just amazing. So I'm so excited that this is happening on this campus.
Yeah, and Denise, thanks for chiming in, because it allows me to say something that you regularly say, and it's a great example of how instruction and student services work collaboratively, right? And you heard Tilly at the beginning said how much she loves student services, but you also heard our instructional colleagues identify the counselor who is the glue as well in this program. And so I'm reminded, Denise, thank you for chiming in, that this is another perfect example of what happens when student services and instruction work collaboratively on behalf of the community and our students. So kudos to everybody who's working in these wonderful partnerships to place students in very high need areas. So good job, everyone. We will move on. Oh, I wanted to say, I know it was one more thing, Lori and Corinne, every year the board has a retreat in May. And we get to put together a brag sheet of what we've accomplished. And I want you all to know this will be one of the things that we will highlight that we've been able to accomplish as a college, and rightfully so because of you all's leadership. So thank you for everything you all do on behalf of our college and our students.
Thank you, Ricky.
Moving on, I am going to turn it over to Tilly, who will share a document that is a living document, a work in progress. Many of you want to know, what is the college's plan to return? What are the percentages? So all three vice presidents are going to offer a discussion about a document that was shared with everyone. It is a draft in a sense that is going to constantly be updated and improved upon, but we will ask for a formal vote of this and a discussion. And so I'll turn it over to Tilly first, and she'll pass it on to Denise and John.
Thank you, Ricky. I do want to just add on to what Ricky was just saying as well, that this will become an attachment or an addendum to the already return to campus plan that John has already presented in many, many places around the campus. So I just want to reemphasize that this is just an addition part. And as you can see, this is as of really 4/18. We're looking at different tiers where we started. I'm just going to kind of quickly go through some of the areas in instructional services for fall 2021. I just wanted to come back and reiterate a few things. That fall of 2020, last year, we only allowed 3 hard to convert sections on campus. We were taking the coming back to campus very seriously, and still do. We want safety is of utmost number one. So we had only allowed 3 sections of hard to convert, and they were our AIR program. And then in spring of this semester, we had 35 sections come back onto campus. And so as I started asking the deans and the chairs, what is it that you have going forward? Automatically, they already had 148 sections that were ready to be offered as a hybrid. And kind of looking at that, they came out to about 9.3. And then it kind of increased a little bit more, sections coming back. We're trying to strive to have no more than 25% come back on campus. But as we start to look at different things, we looked at the buildings, big, large classrooms. And I really want to remind everyone that as we go through this, this was created maybe couple months ago, and then things change every day. I think I heard today now they're saying that you can be outdoors if you're totally vaccinated and not have to wear a mask. But then there's all these other stipulations and makes it kind of crazy and all this stuff. So I'm not going to go there right now. This is just about where we have continued to grow in spaces. So we were looking at having 5 large, maybe 6 large classrooms be available on campus for those face-to-face individuals that really do want to come to campus. So I'll show you some more of that. Adding tents. There was just a lot of different options. Looking at the classrooms that are in the L building, that's where traditionally our English classes will offer their classes of 25 students. That would be very tight to have them come back right now with the regulations and all, but it'd be great, perfect space for people maybe to meet with students. Maybe faculty want to have a meeting with 1 or 2 students, that might be appropriate space or other things. So then we're still looking right now, we're working on the classroom capacity and space, and thank you to Dean Ewell, who has provided some data on our campus of what we already have available. We're just having to get this all meshed together and what really works the best for us. So in a table format, this kind of gives you an idea, a very, very drafty idea and a thought of where we're going. Now, mind you, that the schedule for fall is being created as we speak. So we're approximating about how many sections might be coming back. And I say hybrid, and I've come to realize in the last couple of hours that we really have to define what hybrid really means for everyone. And maybe we all have different definitions. Purposes here was that maybe there might be somebody who has on campus that needs some hands-on attention in a class period for something. So we're going to define that a little bit better. But as you can see, all the different schools have contributed about what they think they might be doing and where they're looking at. And then some things that we were adding is the proctoring center that we're going to launch and pilot hopefully this summer. We're also looking at potentially live streaming that we haven't done before. We had thought about it initially, and then it was something we couldn't do because our doors were actually closed. So now I think this is really going to be something that takes off a little bit more. People can stream live from their classroom space. Some face-to-face classes, still trying to determine how many that is. I know that the deans have been receiving word from faculty. I'll teach my 5 classes in the tent or in a big space. So now we're also trying to figure out the criteria of who gets to get in the space and how do we share that? How do we be equitable across the space on that too? So that is in a nutshell instruction. It's still every day changing. I've spent probably the last 3 days speaking with faculty and some of the deans and talking to them about, so how does this really work? And I'm just going to give you, I had somebody call me and just say, I'm trying to work on a plan, but I'm afraid it's going to get rejected. I said, really, we're here to try to help you make it safe for yourself and for your students and how to get their needs met. So it might take a couple of times we go back and forth, we talk about it. And then all of the plans do go through several of us on campus, the VPs. John also has a health and safety people. We usually use Dottie, our nurse as well. And then we also send it over to Frank Fennessy, our risk manager through the district. So I'm going to mute myself so you don't keep hearing all my emails. And Denise, you just tell me and I'll keep scrolling.
Thank you, VP Chavez. So student services similarly has been engaged in a lot of planning. We really do want to send a special thank you to Vice for John for basically ensuring that parties are informed. He's come to our meetings, he's worked with us. We took the approach of providing a survey to get a sense of what we could do to support our students. And principally our focus at this point, this juncture as we approach fall, really is within the lens of a hybrid model, recognizing just first and foremost that our students are students who often have additional needs. And even in the midst of not being on campus, I want to extend a special thank you to the student services team for making phone calls to all of our students who were excused withdrawals, to really reach out to students, encourage them to come back. So really as a team at all levels, every person is involved in this re-engagement with with, as we prepare for the fall. And so it's quite a bit to scroll, Tilly. So you can scroll and I can talk, but I'll just talk generally now and say that the core services, financial aid and admissions, our EOPS and DSPS will have some physical presence on the campus. I really want to extend a special thanks. Many of you were like, well, can we, extend beyond 50%? But we know in our conversations in our student services meeting last Thursday that it was very clear that we're going to need to make sure that, we even lessen those numbers a bit more, but we really we're committed to have as best we can in spaces in which we can provide some level of physical presence. And also counseling is continuing to provide great services. And so the real lens is to provide that holistic coverage for our students. And so one of the things that Student Services has embarked on too is a program called Cranium. And Cranium is a system-wide, all of the counseling chairs, all the counseling departments are aware throughout the district are creating these. It's likened to Zoom, but more kind of tactile, more student focused that will, in our vision, have legs that extend beyond the space that we're in which students can seek support even within a virtual world. So, we have the areas that I've outlined. We have support programs. Many things are doing hybrid kind of configurations, and we are working on what we're going to do in terms of that intake, the welcome center aspect of it. There's a lot of interest, and I know this is throughout the campus to have that welcoming experience back. And how can we make sure that ultimately everyone is safe, and also that they feel welcome when they're on the campus, because we know that there is some anxiety about returning amongst our students. And there's been so much great work. I mean, everyone in Student Services has done such a great job. I'm excited. Mental health has done a lot of sessions and supports. Affinity programs have really stepped up and reached out to students. So that's the space that we're in. But principally, as we think about re-engagement, we recognize that this is iterative in nature, and the space that we're in now is, to do our best effort in terms of having physical presence on the campus, but also, holistically thinking about when we don't have such services, how can we make that more intentional and more intense? And that's Student Services.
Thank you, Denise. Mine looks a little anemic compared to you guys, but I can tell you we have never really gone home in administrative services, even when the campus was closed going back to March. And right now we have one department actually, which is receiving and stockroom, that they're on campus 5 days a week now. So our service areas have done all we can with a combination of flex schedule and being on campus. Either of these departments, we have someone on campus every day of the week, especially in business services. As we're allocating PPEs, we're distributing keys and fobs and mail services. We're continuing delivery of mail, print jobs, and in the accounting office, they'll come in as well periodically for disbursements, refunds, collections, and bus passes. Right now, the VPs are working on a plan in terms of screening for COVID, temperature checks, survey, and we're creating cluster stations whereby there'll be designated areas throughout the campus where, as we're an open campus, as you know, we cannot control the access points, but we would like to create these cluster stations to control the screening in strategic locations for the campus. So we haven't identified those yet, but we're in the process. We'll be ordering tents and thermometers. Hopefully we can have the standalone thermometers similar to the hospital, where you just walk up and it'll take your temperature. And determining who will be manning those stations, we're looking at work study students, student workers, with a wristband policy similar to what's being employed at Mesa. They have a different color to indicate that you've been cleared and screened to be on campus for that day. So these are some of the ideas that we've been working on over the past several months and will be coming to fruition in very short order.
I think, John, Dean Deddy is sporting one of those bracelets today from our sports for our conditioning as well.
There we
So
go.
thank you. If you don't mind, I do want to add one thing, and I noticed how Denise and John really nicely put out what offices are open, and instruction hasn't got to that level yet. We're just trying to get the classrooms first, but we will get to that point. But I would like to address real quickly that people have been asking, when can I get to my office? So that is a possibility. It's just please work with your dean or your manager to work on a schedule, because that would also be just like anybody else. They put together a plan, who's coming to campus. We're going to continue those until John tells us we don't need to do that anymore. I'm sure you'll send out big notices, John, when you say no need to send those anymore. But until we continue, we have to continue to do that, right? So, and the big thing, I'm going to repeat what I've heard Ricky say someplace else, and that is having people in their offices is one thing, but not having, every faculty member on the floor there at the same time. We do need to manage to see it's staggered, so not everybody's there at the exact same time. Might be different shifts and different days, if I heard you correctly on that, Ricky. And I'll hand it back to you.
Great. Are there any questions for any of the areas from members of the College Council? And Aaron, if you could, there's a request to turn on the closed caption, and that's something we probably should do. Not probably, that is something we should do for each of these meetings. So Aaron, if you are able to do that, much appreciated. Any questions? Jocelyn?
I have a question. So I know it says fall 2021, but have we said what day in fall 2021? August 1, August 2, 3, 4?
Yeah, Jocelyn, that is being discussed with the representative groups. That's a working condition. So Human Resources is in process of communicating mainly with the AFT, who represents the two largest employee groups on campus. Right now, we're shooting for either convocation and or the first day of school. But we know, as both John and Denise have already pointed out, there are groups, and because I was with you on campus, that there are people who are already on campus. And so we will have a definitive date as soon as Human Resources has agreements in place with the representative groups. Other questions? Well, this is a lot of work, and we have a high level of appreciation for everyone involved, because it takes the City College family to put these things together. And there are so many people that could be thanked. As John has indicated, our facilities team has never left. Matter of fact, in my office yesterday, and someone was right there cleaning and straightening things. And so, there are a lot of unsung heroes and sheroes that are really out front to our ability to return. And you've heard some of them. And when you start thanking people, you're going to forget someone, because there's so many people to thank. But I would add that you have nursing, you saw Aaron Deddy and the coaches. People are back on campus, and they're doing so in a very safe way that is allowing us to learn from these experiences so that we can have a greater number of people on campus. You saw some of the programs. This document will be available online for those who want to access it, and we will send it to the entire campus. If there are no questions for the good of the order, I'd like to take a motion to receive this report, meaning that folks are in agreement that they received it, we've discussed it, and we'll continue to work toward bringing people to campus. I'm going to say bringing people to campus instead of back to campus. Bringing people to campus in the safest manner possible.
Bring a motion.
Jocelyn gets it first.
I hear a first for
Thank you,
Jocelyn, second for Aaron. All in favor of receiving, or any further discussion? And Masa's officially our expert at Robert's Rule. He did such a great job the other day, Masa. You were going to chime in, Masa?
Could you clarify the motion, please?
Yeah, that we're receiving basically the plan, right? So we're voting that we receive the plan, that to some degree or another we're in agreement. It's a draft, so it'll continue to be updated and brought back to this group. But I would like to document it in addition to us discussing it, that we voted to receive the plan.
Thank you.
So we've got a first by Jocelyn, a second by Aaron. Any further discussion? All in favor of receiving the return to work plan, indicate, and I learned from Masa the other day too, you can click on the reactions and hit the green button. That means that you accept the plan. You could hit the X, which means you don't. And to document it, it looks like everyone is accepting the plan. Anyone want to abstain? That's probably the only thing, Masa. How do you abstain with the buttons?
We can't, so we kind of have to Jimmy rig it, so to speak, by having them use the wavy hand or something else other than those two.
Yeah. Okay. If it's to abstain, you could wave your hand. Seeing none, we've agreed to receive this report and update on the plan to return to campus, and it'll continue to be communicated broadly. I went to the supervisors just the other day. We had a great conversation about this, and I want to thank Dora, who brought up very meaningful questions about staff safety if we're going to be in a hybrid model and less people in an office. And I encourage Dora to bring that up with her supervisors. So Denise, I'm sure you'll be hearing about that as we look at bringing people back to campus in the most safe way possible. We will move on to the HERF 3 update. We shared this with you all last week. We want to go over it a second time as a second reading and vote for approval of the college's plan for HERF 3 funds. And so I'll turn it over to John Parker.
Thank you, President Shabazz. Okay, so you're familiar with the format of the HERF presentation. This is HERF 3, ARP HERF 3, as President Shabazz alluded to, the American Rescue Plan. I know it can be a little confusing at times, but this is the final iteration thus far. And so we have a $5 million budget, which has been distributed amongst the divisions, as we'll discuss here very shortly. But one thing we wanted to do is to make sure that everyone has received resources that they need to be successful in student learning outcomes. And you'll notice some comments here, and many areas was not included in the HERF 2. I would like to first start with instruction. Tilly, would you mind briefly discussing instruction, and then we'll do student services?
No problem. Sorry about that. So we're looking at about $1.5 million, right, in instruction. And this was already prioritized, like going through chairs, the deans. And so it may not look like we have a lot of areas, but we have a hefty area of the hard to convert, which is line number 2. Number 1 is really tutoring. I can't say enough how much tutoring needs some funding to continue to move forward. And in these days, it seems like we're asking more and more of tutoring. In our line 2, and these are how they were ranked and prioritized, was we saved some funding for hard to convert funds. And this is a huge section that it can be anything and everything. We've had a couple of questions in the last week of, if bringing back a chemistry class is difficult, how do we do that when I need an extra instructor to be able to monitor those students and work with the students? That's what those hard to convert. And that's not the only place they'll be used. It's just an example. We do have in there designated $125,000 for athletics. Athletics coming back is needing quite a bit of funding. So we wanted to designate something aside from that. And then if you notice in the comments, it says we'll prioritize as the list develops. And I've asked the chairs and the deans to help me come up with the criteria needed to decide how do we prioritize the funds in that area. The next ones is really a lot looking at when we're looking at large spaces, so large classroom spaces. We want to bring the live lecture capture with it. And Robbie has been able to find us the dome cameras with the high definition microphone to be put into certain rooms. And what their cost is about $22,000. So we put aside some funding for that piece of it. And then we were asked to not put really PPE in our plans unless it was specialized PPE. And in this case, this is specific that it's, I have to be real careful on this, Ricky, about the plastic seat covers. These plastic seat covers, okay, I went to get my blood drawn a week ago and went into the lab. There was some seats open, you know, where you can sit down because it's the only open chair. Everything else has some type of covering over it. It says, do not sit here. So the seat covers are to designate where people do not sit and where people are safe to sit, and they're already distanced 6 feet apart from each other. So those covers is what we were looking to get for those classrooms. And we'll see how it works and whether or not we still continue to need that type of PPE, or we'll come up with something different, I'm sure, by that time. So that's what the money set aside for. Then we set aside some funding for potentially tent village, to have maybe 2 tents of 80 feet by 120 feet on campus. Just a little kind of need to get on campus and figure out where would they live, where do they go, how did that look like? So that would be a tent village. And then we have some funding that we placed for summer math camps that Denise and I have been working with our faculty to provide for this summer. And then this would be continued for the following year. And then a grant writer, we definitely need to have some funding for that piece of it. Anyways, that's where I am at this moment.
Thank you, VP Chavez. VP Wisenhunt, would you mind walking through student services?
Sure. I just, kind of philosophically approaching this all student services, recognizes again, as I had mentioned, that students, our students need additional support. So what you hear here, and what you'll hear in my communication is there's an opportunity to talk more about the ways in which we've really been thoughtful of providing additional student support. I also want to say that it was also communicated that we begin to think and recognize that we know that these resources will, are here for a finite period of time, and whenever possible to take those opportunities to continue to provide the needed support that we need to do for our students in a way that supports some of the other missions and priorities of the college. So I'll begin. One, of course, is basic needs. You all, Action Days has been happening on our campus. We're also preparing to come back to campus, and what does that look like in terms of providing much needed support for our students who are hungry and come to the campus. So that's what those resources are for. The $90,000 is additional PPE, and we know that John has done a fantastic job already ordering so many different types of PPE, but we will likely to need to identify some resource for things like tents on our campus as we work to serve our students. The admission staff is the gateway space for our students, and we know that that's going to be a critical area in which we really have to kind of shore up what that experience is for our students as they return, and that is the place where they begin to come to the institution. So we have resources to provide some additional technology in that area. Academic works, this is the ability for students to provide scholarships from a distance to apply. We also see this as an important COVID equity practice for us, because this increases capacity for students to apply from a distance. EOPS, this is aligning with our other student support programs. While funded, did not get any specific allocation for COVID dollars. So that is our largest retention program in the entire college, has about 1,000 students. So we really need to be intentional in the supports that we provide there. Campus Logic is kind of along the reasoning that I mentioned before. Campus Logic is a way in which we can package financial aid and do it more expeditiously. We have allocated $170,000 to buy Campus Logic. This is in alignment with our sister campuses. The important piece to this too is that we know that this will likely increase our Pels, which will also help in our student-centered funding formula. I know anecdotally, spaces like Maricosa, this increased the number of Pels, which increases their ultimate bottom line for the college by packaging in this way. So we're really using those resources to provide resources when the money dries up. Also, we have additional money for counseling. We are definitely aware that students have acute, intense, additional counseling needs in this space. So that's why you see those resources. And in particular, to provide an athletic counselor as part of the plan. Our athletes have been through a lot. Again, this is the support, ancillary support to counseling, and that's what those funds are for. And in addition, we too, as partners of Integrated Approach in Athletics, are providing resources for that transition because in order to comply with the regs, there are certain things that you have to do. So we're working in tandem together to do that, as well as identifying some transfer hardware. And that's all in equity practice to help our students to be more successful in the middle of COVID. In terms of our data, the other piece is simultaneously, some of the things that we talked about earlier, really talking about shoring up that ability to support our students. And then what you see there are the many different spaces, affinity spaces that support our students in our new space, which will be for our LGBTQIA students, our previously incarcerated students, and they were not funded in our previous allocation. So some things you may see here, or you'll say, where's the other thing? Well, it was actually allocated in our prior allocation. Upward Bound, there is a contingency for hard to convert things that I have going on in the student services area. And technology, we also have made a commitment to provide additional student workers. Our president has been explicit in saying, which is brilliant, retention, when you hire a student on campus, that is a retention tool. And so there are many spaces as we talk about health and safety, we're gonna need student workers. And that's why that's, indicated in this plan. And finally, the grant writer, we acutely need that resource for the campus. Again, that's intentional planning. Once these resources leave the campus, how are we going to make sure that those students a year from now may very well have some of the same needs that they have today within a COVID lens? We don't know what's going to happen, and this is presenting the framework and support for the future.
Well done. Thank you, Denise.
Thank you.
President Shabazz, you're muted.
Yes, thanks. I was thanking Denise as well, and saying that the president's office is going to access $1 million. And folks may be saying, why the president's office? They're actually direct reports to the president's office. The academic senate is one. And so we'll work with MAS and the academic senate. And these will be funds that the academic senate will administer. They'll come up with their own process. Student Health Center and DSPS. And when we say Student Health Center, we really know we have two amazing professionals in our Student Health Center, one dealing with mental health, the other in Leslie, and then Dottie dealing with or helping support our students and being on the front line of our knowledge and awareness of COVID-related matters. And so you may say, why is this appearing in the president's area and not in student services? That's how important this was for it to come out of the president's allocation. And let me go on record that is not enough money. Our students, our employees, our community are facing very real challenges and have very real needs with mental health and access to vaccines and other health-related matters. So let me go on record as saying Denise and I are talking. There will be block funds that come from the state that we will do an additional allocation for the health center. So you all will get more than $250,000. Also in that is DSPS. So this first 200, well, really is not the first. This will be the third allocation going to these areas. Second for Dottie, third for mental health, third for DSPS. And I can assure you that there will be a fourth when we look at the block grants and the MSI funding. Funding for the foundation, this is seed money to really build out our City College Foundation. We know the foundation played a huge role in accessing or allowing students to access laptops and Wi-Fi hubs. Kudos to Roxanne and Jim Senegal and everyone who donated funds that allowed us to leverage those resources. We believe if we invest $250,000 into the foundation, that should yield $1 million. Connecting with alumni, connecting with businesses, connecting with our community so that folks can give to City. And that is our slogan, give to City, help a student. $100,000 for marketing, that's Caesar and the wonderful work going on by Victor and Kim. $100,000 for institutional research. We unfortunately lost a researcher in the untimely death of our great colleague, Jesse. We're in a hiring freeze, so we want to put resources to be able to bring in a NANS or possibly a full-time employee on a one-year contract. Release time for a faculty appointment. We lost our Dean of Equity. So we'll be working with Denise and her team to come up with a concept to integrate world cultures, social justice, and equity, allowing a faculty member to maybe take on additional roles to help her with that because she's down one dean. Our student services is down one dean. I should probably say it that way. And then $100,000 for contingencies. We don't know what's going to happen in COVID. And so those are the items coming out of the president's $1 million allocation. And I would, before I go over, well, I'll go to John, then I'll come back. Go ahead, John.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mine's real fast. For PPE, Roxanne did a great job in ordering PPE prior to COVID, prior to the campus closing down, actually. And we brought pallets in from the state as well. But as we started to diminish them over the past year, we'll need to replenish those. And not really knowing how long we're going to be using PPE in the form of masks or sanitizers. And that's why I have that as an ongoing fund request there. Facilities, again, another department that's just never really left the campus. We'll be purchasing some COVID-related equipment and supplies and replacing some of the more antiquated equipment. We did purchase foggers at the campus and the district level. We may need some in the future, so that's included. We need additional ones in the future, so that's included in here as well. Miscellaneous equipment and COVID suspense account, which is essentially a contingency account for us for administrative services for those expenses that we just can't anticipate right now. We're kind of in a wait and see pattern to determine when we're going to come back, what that's going to look like in phasing, when we get back to 100%. And we've experienced some one-offs and the unplanned contingency. This can be professional development, training, equipment. We're ordering the floor decals now, so we're returning. This comes out of there as well. Again, $1 million is not enough to support the entire campus. I think we've done a fantastic job in budgeting over the last year to make sure that the funds that have been allocated to us have been sufficient in ensuring that we have the supplies and resources that we need to function at the campus. Again, before I turn it back over to you, Ricky, this is just a draft. This is the preliminary institutional allocation. And once it is formally approved, we'll note that on here, the date that it was approved by the College Council. Ricky, you wanted to add one other thing?
Yeah, and if we could stop share for a moment, this document was emailed to all the members of College Council, and we reviewed it last meeting. So this is our second reading. Once we approve it, it'll be sent out to the campus, and folks may say, well, I didn't get anything. Well, if you look at every area, student services, instruction, even the president's office, there are going to be additional opportunities for people to submit the request form. John Parker, 2 or 3 weeks ago, sent out the request form. Matter of fact, John, let's send out the request form again with the approved version of this, so that people who need resources, we need to hear from you so that we know how we can support your efforts to in turn support our students. I know Tilly has something she wants to say, then I'll come back and then we'll bring this to a vote and further discussion.
Two quick things I just wanted to mention. If I noticed that into student services, there was tents, and instructional services are tents. They're different sizes, different types. And of course, everything we get is really for the college. So these are things that can be integrated and used in different ways. We just haven't figured out yet how that will be. Another piece I wanted to come back to when it talks about hard to convert. These are things that we've been doing along. We had nursing programs, that things that are related to COVID, right? We're not looking to lower our class caps by any means and do anything like that. But sometimes because of COVID, the nursing clinicals wouldn't allow the nurses to have a 1-to-10 ratio with their students. They ended up only allowing 1-to-4 or 1-to-6. So we needed to use some of the hard to convert funds to pay for that other instructor, but that's not a common thing everywhere. It's just, I just wanted to be clear when I was trying to use an example, people weren't getting ideas, like just put in for it. She's going to pay for all those things. It's a very limited amount of funds when you look at it. I think John just said it very well, is it may look like there's a lot of funds, but it goes very, very quickly. And so we are looking to see how we can get to our students, get their needs done as best we can, but continuing as if it was a regular course. I don't know how else to put that, Ricky, in that piece of it, but.
Yeah, and you did a great job, Tilly, and so did the other vice presidents. And I just would remind us before we open this up for discussion that these are one-time funds. On a traditional cycle, the college would have discretionary funds in the amount of less than $1 million. I want to thank our federal government because they've really invested and infused a large amount of resources into our college that we normally wouldn't have, to the tune of about $12 million if you look at HERF 1, HERF 2, and HERF 3. And so I would remind us that there are metrics in place to ensure the success of our students. The vice presidents, the deans, the chairs, the supervisors are working very diligent to ensure that these funds go to things impacted by COVID. With that said, I'd like to take a motion for approval of the colleges. Oh, one other thing. These funds have not arrived. So HERF 2 has arrived, HERF 3 hasn't. So these funds are subject to change. It could be 4.9 million, could be 5.3 million. If that is the case, we will come back to this group to have that discussion of funds. But if we could take a motion for approval of this plan.
I'll make a motion, if I may.
Okay, we got a first by Tilly. Would someone like to second approval?
I second.
I saw Aaron's peace sign, so I'm going to go with Aaron.
Peace sign go. Yes.
I got this before I got that.
Further discussion. This is where folks who have questions can present them. Further discussion.
I only have one comment. Where for the APA for John Parker, where it says NA for not program review, that standard?
Well, you want to tackle that, John?
In the program review, yes, those particular items that I have on here in general PPE and COVID related equipment.
We all do. Actually, in instruction had a couple of two that they're not going to appear in program review because they're only COVID related.
Yeah, so Jocelyn, to your question, the financial aid office isn't going to put in program review that they want plexiglass in a certain space because that's directly COVID related. what we're trying to get to is, because we traditionally wouldn't have $12 million in 1 year, is that we're trying to prioritize those things that are both COVID related and in program review when and where possible. But when it comes to facilities, a lot of there's things not going to be in program review because they are the ones charged with making sure the filtration system is up to speed. As John said, the signage is on the ground. Those things wouldn't be in program review because we wouldn't even need them if we were not in COVID. So they're somewhat in a unique situation.
Okay.
Other questions? Hearing none, we've got a first by Tilly. We've got a second by Aaron. All in favor, if you would use the green, the reaction button, either the green for yes or the X for voting it down. If you would like to abstain, just do the wave and we can know that you're abstaining. Looks like the motion passes. Again, we'll have John send the updated version of this. Instead of draft, we'll put a notation, John, that this is contingent upon the actual allocation, which we believe will be $5 million. If it is more than that, then we'll come back to College Council for discussion for the additional funding. And I would also request that you send the request form, because again, with the Academic Senate allocation, they'll come up with a process to allocate that $100,000. The same in HERF 2, we put some money in professional development. There's going to still be an opportunity for folks to access resources that have been allocated in a lump sum dollar to an area. The diversity committee will have an allocation for people who want to do diversity work on campus, particularly that hits to the point of retention of our students. So there's still opportunities for funding if you didn't see your program listed, and then we'll have an additional conversation around the block funding that'll come from the state at some point, just like it did in the fall. With that said, let's move on the agenda to facilities. And Susan.
Yeah, this is actually Dr. Parker's item. I think what happened was I had had a list of agenda items with different aspects of institutional planning to cover for the spring. And so my name got attached to the facilities master plan process, but that really has been John's delete. So I will hand it off to him.
Thank you. I'm glad you clarified. I didn't know if you had anything special that you were taking from facilities master's plan. Not too much of an update right now. The surveys, as you may have seen, have gone out, and we're fielding the feedback and responses from those surveys. I actually received several questions and recommendations, most of them within the last few days or so, and I'll be responding to those accordingly. We'll compile all of the responses that I received personally. I'll forward them over to RNT, who are our consultants for the facilities master's plan. And there actually is not a closed date on the survey. There was a recommended date on there, and that was some of the comments that I received. Well, the time frame is too short, but we can continue to receive comments, questions, and recommendations beyond that date. And in fact, I'll probably need to send something out to the community to that note. So the next update will include the responses from the survey, but that's where we are today with the facilities master plan. Any questions? And may I add, Ricky, real quick? I see.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Meeting with the VPs to think about or plan our walkthrough for the return, in which the consultants RNT have been asked to impart some of their recommendations to return in COVID environment. Not part of the facilities master's plan, but they have been working with us on that endeavor. You were saying, Ricky, or about to say?
No, I was going to say that concludes our agenda for today. While acknowledging item 7 on the agenda are the wonderful year-end events. We call this Smiley season, right? So we have student affairs and Sylvia and the team putting together the scholarship awards, the Black graduation, the alumni mixer, course commencement again with Marciano, his team, Caesar, and everyone who was videotaped a week or so ago. I see your hand, Tilly. Latino graduation, the nursing pinning ceremony, retirement celebration. Oh, wait a minute. I skipped over. I must be looking at the wrong agenda. I skipped over a very important thing to announce. Tilly, you were going to remind me.
That's it. That's a reminder.
I saw you winking at me. Wink, wink, wink. Yes. So in Chancellor's Cabinet today, we had a discussion about vacancies. We know that a number of our deans are retiring. We know that people are retiring. We know we have vacancies. And so I'm happy to report that we've been given the green light to move forward with a couple of positions. 2 of them are existing vacancies. Happy to report that the dean who is over athletics and exercise science and health has been authorized to open for recruitment. Aaron, if you would report that to the department, like you all are hearing this fresh as we've been approved. Happy to report that the theater tech has been authorized for recruitment. Tilly, Lori, if you would report that back to Jeannie, who may be working. As a matter of fact, happy birthday, Jeannie. Jeannie had a birthday the other day. Happy birthday, Jeannie. And happy to report, ecstatic to report that we've been approved to replace positions that become vacant after April 9th. So any position that becomes vacant after April 9th, we've been authorized to be able to replace. And you saw Lori doing a clap that, yes, that means both Randy and Lori's position will move forward with recruitment. We still got a lot of work to do. That's positive news. That's a testimony to the great work that our entire campus has done in conserving our resources so that we can get through some of these financial challenges that the district and the state is going through. So I'm happy to report that'll include any vacancy. I said any vacancy, right? So I know I'm gonna get some questions. What about faculty? Or what about staff? Or what about supervisors? In the immediacy, now this is subject to change, right? Because this is fluid, these are resources, but in the immediacy, we have been authorized to replace any position that has become vacant effective April 9th of this year. And so that'll allow us to hire, I believe, some faculty members if we have some retirements. Now, if we do have faculty members who retire, we know we have a list put forth MASA by our academic senate. We believe in that. We also know we have some concerns or some gaps in nursing. And so I'm going to be meeting with the nursing department. Matter of fact, I invited MASA to join me in that meeting with the nursing department. We are very, very aware of where there are needs, and there are needs across the campuses. Came up in my meeting with the supervisors. I had a conversation, Susan, with Brittany, and wanted to know whether or not we would be able to replace our researcher. And unfortunately, we're still in this freeze, but it's being relaxed a little, right? So I want to be clear. Those positions that were vacant prior to April 9th, unfortunately, folks, please don't be mad at me, but they're gone. We had to use those resources to keep our colleagues employed, to avoid layoffs. Upwards of 90% of our budget is in fact the wonderful employees of our college. MASA, yes,
Does that include the very important professional development coordinator position?
Unfortunately, Masa, it doesn't, because that position became vacant in March of 2020. But I am happy to report that Robbie is working with HERF2 funds to have a recruitment. And Robbie, the info session is coming up. Is it this week or is it next week?
Ricky, it's this Thursday at 1 o'clock.
This Thursday. So Masa, we, at least for a year, will have someone working with professional development. I did put forth those positions, but in a multi-college district, let me say that every college received 2 positions off of their list. I assure you, Masa, that was on the list. What took priority was one, in order to have an athletics program, you got to have an athletic director. And while we appreciate Aaron doing a wonderful job, he's in an acting position. And we talked about these priorities, I think, in a prior meeting, but I'll go over them really quickly. And I apologize for running over the 4 o'clock mark. But the theater tech position is a health and safety. We can't use the Seville and the thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment there, not to mention the instructional programs that it supports with dance and drama and other things, without a theater tech. Like, we literally have no one running the equipment in the Seville, short of Caesar getting up there and working out of class and helping with those things. Matter of fact, we had an adventure when we were filming. You didn't get to see this, Masa, but we tried to figure out how to open the curtain, and none of us knew how to open the curtain. Those are the kind of things we take for granted. But to answer your question specifically, certainly the professional development coordinator is a high priority position, which is why we put forth HERF2 funds. And things may relax. We may need to revisit, Masa, the faculty hiring prioritization, where that becomes higher on the list, so that if we do have a retirement, that we could use those funds from the retirement to replace the professional development coordinator.
And I'm also thinking that there might be a mandate driven hiring that might have to happen, as you know, AB 1440 or Title V changes coming through in terms of ethnic studies requirements. I worry that if we don't have a plan to think about responding to the need of our students to complete a course, so we ought to plan ahead as well, as what I'm hoping to share here.
Yeah, and I also, absolutely, I fully support that. I also want to be clear, though, the campus does have a professional development coordinator. His name is Don Long. He's a faculty member, as I understand it. And we will be working with Robbie once these other folks are in place to have a update at College Council on professional development. But professional development does fall into Dean Robbie Yule's area, and there is someone in that slot. And I can tell you that both Tilly and I speak to Robbie regularly about the professional development that is coming out of that area, because it's important to the campus. Other questions or comments? This is good. This is positive news, folks. When you're in a hiring freeze, to be able to hire any positions. Masa, I also want to be clear, and I'm sure the vice presidents will tell you, and certainly the deans and the chairs, the deans and the supervisors will tell you, because I speak openly about that. I am very aware of our need to hire faculty. I'm very aware of our need to hire classified professionals. And I'm also hypersensitive of replacing manager positions when and where we're not able to hire faculty. It just is such that this is circumstances that people are retiring. These are not new positions. If we did not replace Lori's position or Randy's position, now certainly you can never replace the people. You can only try to replace the positions. But if we didn't, it was going to trigger a reorg, which is a whole nother process. And so I am proud that we're going to be able to avoid that, because that would have triggered a lot of movement on campus during a pandemic that I don't think any of us necessarily wanted to see occur. There is still a need for reorg, though, in student services, because we will not be replacing the Dean of Equity because of budgetary matters with the SIA funds not increasing at the pace that salaries that are on that set of funds, or really it's 2 sets of funds. And so Denise is working with her unit to bring to this council, preferably before we leave for break, a proposal for a reorg in her area. And I'll table that until it comes. Any other questions? Hearing none, if you have a year-end event that was not listed or acknowledged today, please send it to the president's office or your vice president so we can get it on the meeting for the next college council. Tilly, if you would work with Aaron, as in Aaron in my office, there are more Aarons at our college than anywhere I've ever worked. Aaron in my office, that's a wonderful name, by the way. Aaron in my office to have an AVWAR presentation, I would appreciate it. And if any members of the college council would like a presentation, please shoot an email to my office. We would be glad to accommodate that. With that said, folks, if there are no other questions for the good of the order, it's always good to see you all virtually, but I have to admit, I look forward to seeing you all in person. I would also invite you all to join me as I'm working with Aaron Deddy, the other Aaron, to visit our athletes and our coaches who are back on campus. Unfortunately, it rained the other day, so I didn't get a chance to do it, but looking forward to rescheduling that. And I would urge you all to join me if you can to support our coaches and our athletes who are in fact back on campus. Take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Appreciate everything you all do for our campus.